Adaptive leadership is a practical leadership framework that helps individuals and organizations adapt and thrive in challenging environments. It is being able, both individually and collectively, to take on the gradual but meaningful process of change. According to Northaus, when you realize that your organization's aspirations, the innovations and progress you want to see, cannot be attained through your current approaches, adaptive leadership is a framework you need to diagnose, interrupt, and innovate to create the capabilities that match your organization's aspirations. As suggested by the name, the essence of adaptive leadership is to promote adaptability that allows the organization to flourish and take along its best history to help with future successes. As per Suzanne Lucas, adaptive leaders make use of a set of practices and strategies that are designed to assist individuals and organizations in breaking through gridlocks and accomplishing profound change. To conclude, there are four dimensions of adaptive leadership, and they create a leadership framework for you to pursue: navigating business environments, leading with empathy, learning through self correction and reflection, and finally, creating win win solutions. Thank you.
The adaptive leadership theory adds to leadership studies in several ways. The theory emphasizes how a leader can help others adapt in certain situations. This change or adaptation also includes the leader themselves and or society. The theory adds to leadership studies because it essentially highlights how a leader teaches others to govern themselves by the ability to adapt. The theory is follower centered and prompts others to take on challenges in order to grow. It pushes others to 1. Step out of their comfort zone when faced with a challenge, 2. Analyze the challenge, 3. Handle distress, 4. Focus on what needs to be done, 5. Display autonomy, and 6. To be an advocate for oneself and others. The theory makes note of what is thought to be the behaviors of an adaptive leader, which include the ability to mobilize, motivate, organize, and orient. As a result of these behaviors, leaders can inspire followers to handle difficult situations as they come.
Adaptive leadership has many weaknesses. One weakness is the fact that very little verifiable research has been done to test the truthfulness of adaptive leadership theory. Without research, there is no way to tell if it is actual facts or fiction. Even though the roots for adaptive leadership were established more than 20 years ago in Heifetz Leadership Without Easy Answers from the year 1994, adaptive leadership is based on ideas and assumptions, not research. Adaptive leadership's major factors and the relationship between each factors is not clearly outlined. The prescriptions of the adaptive leadership process are too broad because it doesn't specifically clarify what exactly needs to be done. The link between adaptive leadership and remaining a positive morality is not clearly illustrated. Leaders want their followers to change, but don't want them to lose sight of their morals.
So, one of the authors and developers of the framework of adaptive leadership, Ron Heifetz, said in an early 2019 YouTube video that one might exercise leadership from a high position of authority, or from the middle, or even from the front lines. Now, this statement coincides with Shanae Jeffries' take in 2019 that says leaders lead amongst the people now. They don't have to lead from the front, they can lead from within. Since neither Heifetz nor his co author, Marty Linsky, have published any new material on adaptive leadership in recent times, the best way to collect information is to practice adaptive leadership. But according to Heifetz and Linsky, there is an updated framework for adaptive leadership. They are as defined. Number one, diagnosing the system. This means diagnosing both the adaptive situation and the people in that situation. Number two, making interpretations, changing the perspective of groups on three different levels, from individual to group dynamic, from conflict avoidance to engagement, and from technical to adaptive. Number three, designing interventions. Interventions are designed to draw attention to adaptive challenges, to increase or decrease distress, and to overcome the inclination for adaptive work avoidance. Number four, acting politically. This is accomplished by expanding informal authority and taking responsibility for any losses that occur. Number five, creating a holding environment and orchestrating conflict. A leader will create a setting where people can hash out their unresolved conflict or adaptive challenges. The sixth, seeing oneself as a system. And this is identifying one's loyalties, triggers, and understanding the different roles that a leader must perform. Seven, deploying oneself. This is simply staying connected to one's purpose and engaging with and inspiring to help others. There are many individuals who use the adaptive leadership framework. They range from the healthcare industry to school systems to community groups, as well as the military. The military leaders especially benefit from Heifetz's concept of living in disequilibrium because it helps to build successful teams and make great leaders. There are still studies being done on adaptive leadership, but the best way to gather new information on the subject is for industries and leaders to continue to thrive in adaptive situations.
Adaptive leadership emphasizes situations that require individuals to adjust after facing a challenge. The quote by George S. Patton Jr., which states, "Pressure makes diamonds," is an example of someone adapting to a negative situation and turning it into a positive situation. Most people believe that adaptive leadership is centered around leaders, but it is centered around followers. Adaptive leadership is very useful because it allows organizations to adapt and not remain stagnant. My assessment of the adaptive leadership theory revolves around leadership without authority. Heifetz, 1994, stated that people sometimes assume that you must be in a position of authority to be a leader, which is untrue. Adaptive leadership comes from an environment with an adaptive situation where a person consciously decides to fix a problem. Therefore, adaptive leadership proves that one can be a leader without being an authority figure and vice versa.